Imagine this for a second. Flags rustling at a small-town cemetery. Or maybe a family finally opening that letter years later, the one confirming their son is coming home. These aren't just pictures in your head, they're real echoes of an American story. Today we're doing a deep dive into one such life. It's the story of Sergeant Frank M. Schafer, Jr. from Seneca, Kansas. An extraordinary life, but tragically short. Our mission really is to piece together his experience. We've got local newspaper clippings, a really moving letter from his chaplain, and the wider context of the battles he fought in. We want to trace his path, from this quiet Kansas town to the battlefields of Europe and see how his community honored his sacrifice in such a profound way.
Right, and the sources are key here. We're looking at the Courier Tribune, that local paper, which really followed his story closely. Then there's that chaplain's letter, which gives us such a personal perspective. And, of course, the military history surrounding his service.
Exactly. These bits of information, sometimes they arrive years apart for the family, but together they paint this incredibly vivid picture. You see the soldier, the war, the impact back home.
It's a powerful narrative woven from these fragments.
Okay, so let's unpack Frank Martin Schafer Jr.'s journey. He was born October 26, 1923, right there in Seneca, Kansas. Before the war, descriptions called him a quiet youth. He worked as a truck driver.
And he was the only son, which often added, well, a different kind of weight for families during wartime.
Definitely. His life changes dramatically around early 1943. He enters the U.S. Army, does his initial training at Camp Campbell, Kentucky, and what's really striking is just how fast things moved. By December 1943, he's already overseas in North Africa.
Yeah, that speed is incredible.
And he writes home, tells his parents the country is nice where he is located, even mentions having a fine Thanksgiving dinner. It's almost jarring, that sense of normalcy he's trying to convey.
It really is. That transition, civilian to combatant in a major war zone, it's almost whiplash. North Africa, Sicily, Italy, then France with a tank battalion. It highlights the sheer scale of mobilization.
Millions of young men thrown into this global conflict.
Exactly. Many with, relatively limited training compared to the demands. The pressure to adapt, to learn, to fight effectively in months. It's immense.
It speaks volumes about that generation.
It really does, both the collective effort and the individual grit required.
So the timeline takes another sharp turn here. The record shows Sergeant Schafer was awarded the Purple Heart.
Right.
And then an Oak Leaf cluster to the Purple Heart, meaning a second award for outstanding service in action. This was September 12, 1944 in France.
A significant date.
And his sister, Mrs. William Macron, gets a letter from him. He says his tank was knocked out and he lost everything he owned.
Wow. Imagine getting that news.
Knowing he was right in the thick of it, agonizing for the family back in Seneca.
Absolutely. And it brings up the question, what exactly was happening on September 12th, 1944 in southern France? Well, if you connect the dots to the bigger picture, that date lines up perfectly with a major tank battle near Dompierre in Lorraine.
Okay, not just a small skirmish then.
No, far from it. This was pivotal. The French 2nd Armored Division, with crucial support from U.S. air power, basically decimated the German 112th Panzer Brigade.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Destroyed over 60 German tanks. It's often cited as this textbook example of air-ground coordination working perfectly.
So a big Allied victory.
A huge victory, but
Yeah.
for Frank, you see, it wasn't just a strategic win on a map.
No, for him it was personal.
It was a shell hitting his tank, it was injury, losing his belongings. It's that stark reminder that even in victorious battles, individuals face the brutal reality, the cost.
And yet his resilience,
Yeah.
it's remarkable. He gets wounded, loses his tank, but he bounces back. There's a letter he sent on Christmas Day, 1944. His parents got it in mid-January 45. He tells them he's recovered after weeks in the hospital, and he's back with his unit.
That's incredible spirit.
And get this, he still managed to send Christmas gifts home. Beautiful silk scarves and gloves for his mother and sisters, ties for his dad.
Wow. Even amidst all that chaos and trauma.
Right. That desire for connection, for normalcy, for thinking of others, it says so much.
She really does.
Now, before the really tragic news arrived back home, there was actually an article published about his unit, the 756th Tank Battalion.
Okay.
It detailed this pretty amazing combat technique they were using, called Watch My Tracer. They described it almost like an old training game, but used in the heat of battle.
Interesting. How did it work?
Well, the article paints this really vivid picture. An infantry captain spots a German machine gun nest. Those were incredibly dangerous.
Absolutely deadly.
So the captain fires one shot from his rifle, a tracer round, at the nest. Frank, as the tank commander, sees that tracer and spins his turret to get generally aligned.
Okay, using the infantry as a spotter.
Exactly. Then the captain fires another tracer, giving the tank gunner the precise aiming point.
Pinpoint accuracy under fire.
And then, boom, the tank blasts the position. The article said they were incredibly effective, just knocking out nest after nest.
That is fascinating. It's that blend of individual skill, close teamwork, and just absolute trust in the middle of complete chaos.
Yeah, it wasn't standard procedure, right?
Not at all. This wasn't from a field manual. It was pure adaptation, born out of necessity on the ground. And it worked. They knocked out 13 machine gun nests, captured or killed over 200 Germans, took their objective town.
Wow.
It speaks volumes about the ingenuity of these crews, turning maybe a simple training idea into a vital life-saving tactic.
It really shows how that kind of quick thinking, that unconventional approach, could make such a difference.
Absolutely. Desperate creativity, often.
But even with that skill and bravery, the war, well, the odds were just immense, and the news that eventually came for Frank's family was just devastating.
Yeah.
On February 9th, 1945, Mr. and Mrs. Schafer get a telegram.
Oh, the telegrams. Dreaded things.
It says their son, Sergeant Frank M. Schafer, is missing in action over France since January 25.
Just missing. That uncertainty must have been unbearable.
Can you imagine waiting, wondering, is he alive, captured, gone, just waiting?
And then only days later, February 14th, 1945, Valentine's Day, of all days,
Terrible timing.
the official word arrives. Frank had been killed in action on that same date, January 25th. He was only 21.
Just 21.
And that delay in communication, it raises questions, doesn't it? The logistics, the verification process.
Yeah, why the gap between missing and killed?
Well, the chaos of combat, especially that winter fighting in early 45, was intense. Recovering and identifying casualties could take time. The military had procedures, but they were slow, prioritizing accuracy, which meant families lived in that awful limbo.
It's hard to fathom that kind of waiting.
Communities like Seneca, they leaned on each other, shared the burden, but that specific uncertainty, it was brutal.
Later, the Courier Tribune got more details, which must have provided some measure of, well, maybe not comfort, but clarity. It came from Chaplain, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph J. Smith. He was the division chaplain for the 3rd Infantry Division, Frank's unit. He wrote directly to the Schafers.
Those chaplain letters were often incredibly important, sometimes the only real link to a soldier's final moments, and his letter explained what happened. Frank was commanding his tank during an attack in northeastern France. Fierce fighting in that area then.
Right.
As they neared a wooded area, common hiding spot for snipers, Frank raised his head above the turret, trying to get a better view, command his crew.
A brave but dangerous move.
Tragically so. He was hit by a sniper's bullet, killed instantly.
Oh, man. Instantaneous.
Swift. The chaplain tried to offer solace, praising Frank, called him a very capable and determined tank commander, said he was well-liked by all the men of his company.
That says a lot about him.
It does. And the chaplain framed his sacrifice, saying he paid a great price that we as a free people might continue to enjoy all those things that make life worth living, connecting his death to the larger cause.
Powerful words.
He also assured them Frank was buried in a beautifully located and well-kept cemetery, and that he'd remember Frank in his masses. Small comforts, maybe, but incredibly meaningful for a grieving family.
But Frank's story doesn't end there, does it? His journey wasn't over.
No, not quite.
In April 1948, more than 3 years after he was killed, his body was repatriated, brought back to the U.S. on the Army transport Robert F. Burns.
Part of that massive post-war effort.
And he had this somber distinction in Seneca. He was the first local soldier whose body was brought home from overseas.
That repatriation program was huge, a national commitment. Millions of families faced that choice. Bring them home or leave them in the overseas cemeteries. Frank came back from Epinal, France.
A military cemetery there.
That's right. These homecomings, years after the war ended, they allowed communities to finally, truly grieve together and honor their fallen on home soil.
And Seneca's response? It was just extraordinary. Really speaks to that small-town bond.
What did they do?
For Frank's funeral, April 30th, 1948, the mayor, Jean Toby, requested a full 2-hour closing of Seneca places of business.
2 hours. The whole town shut down.
The whole town. It wasn't just a suggestion. The Chamber of Commerce, the VFW, the Lees, they all pushed for it, saying, it is little enough to do for those who gave their lives.
That's incredible.
They urged everyone, farmers included, to come. The newspaper reported the closing was virtually 100%. Every shop, every office closed its doors.
That shows a deep sense of community, of shared loss and respect.
Absolutely. The funeral itself was full military honors at Saints Peter and Paul Church and Cemetery.
A powerful ritual.
Requiem Mass, a sermon about his sacrifice, color guard, honor escort. Over 200 ex-servicemen marched in the procession, veterans who knew the cost. Then the firing squad, the 3 volleys, the sound of taps, and that haunting echo from a distant bugler. It was a collective act of remembrance, not just for Frank, but for everyone.
A community truly coming together.
And here's one last detail, just incredibly poignant.
Okay.
Another soldier, Sergeant Michael Campbell from Hoxie, Kansas, was killed in the same battle on the same day as Frank.
Wow.
And his body came back on the very same transport ship.
No kidding.
Get this. Their mothers had been girlhood friends.
Oh my goodness. That's almost unbelievable. That connection, that shared grief across towns, across lifetimes, brought together again by tragedy.
It really underscores the ripple effect, doesn't it?
It truly does.
So we've traced this journey. Sergeant Frank M. Schafer Jr., the quiet kid driving trucks in Kansas, becomes this decorated tank commander. We see his ingenuity, his resilience.
Right, through North Africa, Italy, France.
The wounds of September 44, the final battle in January 45, and then that incredibly honored homecoming years later.
His story really is a testament not just to individual bravery, but to how these global conflicts impacted small communities like Seneca in such profound, lasting ways.
And you see how pulling together these different sources,
Yeah.
the local news, the chaplain's words, the military context, brings it all to life.
Exactly. It moves beyond just names and dates. You get the courage, the innovation born of necessity, the immense sacrifice. It reminds you that history is made up of these individual, deeply personal stories.
And the way Seneca responded, years later, that collective act of remembrance.
It's powerful. So as you think about Frank's journey and that incredible tribute from his hometown, maybe consider this. How do these individual acts of bravery, even the ones lost to time or seemingly small, how do they weave into the larger tapestry of history? How do they underpin the freedoms we might take for granted today?
Yeah. What echoes of Frank's sacrifice and all the others like him still resonate?
And how do we today continue to remember and bear witness to those moments that shaped our world? Something to reflect